Hello to everybody, my name is Stefano and welcome to this episode of the Think and Analyze podcast. Today we are at episode 25th and today we will talk about the locus of control. So, as always, let's start with the definition of what we are talking. The locus of control could be defined as the degree to which people perceive obtained results as internally controllable through their commitment and actions as opposed to externally controlled by chance, fate, or external forces beyond their influence. So now that you have this definition, you could ask yourself, what is my locus of control? In my opinion, it is very useful to know what is yours. First of all, because you get to know yourself better, of course, and that's something we should all aspire to. But once you know what is your locus of control, you are also able to understand what is others' locus of control. So by doing that, you will become much more aware of what is going on around you, and especially of how the people around you perceive the reality. So, in order to understand what is your locus of control, you simply have to ask yourself, is it internal? So, do you believe that the results you obtain are the results of your commitment, of your actions, of your sort of ability, or is it external? So, in that case, you might believe that the things that happen around you are the result of external forces, of some sort of luck, some sort of fate, some sort of predestination, those kind of things. Now, of course, it's not black and white. You might have a mix of both extremes, but having defined the extremes, it becomes much more much easier, sorry, to understand where you are located in that sort of continuum. And once you know your locus of control, you can understand what is others' locus of control. And you do that by analyzing their way of speaking. As a matter of fact, how we speak literally speaks volume about ourselves. And the locus of control is no exception. So there are some sentences, in my opinion, which I have thought about, which identify an internal or an external locus of control. The sentences which identify a person with an external locus of control are things like, I'm so unlucky, it always happens to me, I simply can't do it, that's just how it is, it's a particular moment in my life, and to an extent, because I've got other problems. Now you see that in these sentences, they all sort of refer, well, we should say, they all sort of shift the responsibility for something that is going on to something else that is not the person who is talking. So saying something like, I'm so unlucky, clearly means it's not my fault. It's just unluck. I can't control it. And of course, this is an example of external locus of control. It always happens to me. In a certain sense, it does imply that there is some external force. There are some external forces, sorry, which sort of control and make reality in a specific way so that that specific thing always happens to that person. I simply can't do it. That's just how it is. In this sentence, we have sort of a reference to, I believe, how the characteristics which a person has from the beginning, from the moment they were born. And so, in this case, in my opinion, it shifts the responsibility to how they are, and so they can't really control that specific aspect of their life or whatever because they are born like that. So you see that the responsibility is shifted towards something external, something that they couldn't control. It's a particular moment in my life. This shifts the responsibility again, of course, to sort of a situation of the person. It's not the the person who is sorry. It's not the person's fault, but it is the moment which sort of forced them to act in a certain way, forced them to not be able to do something, whatever that may be. So, in my opinion, that that identifies an external locus of control. Now, it may happen that for a person, it's actually a particular moment in their life, and so in that case, you would understand it. What I meant when I said this sentence, I meant I sort of believe that it identifies an external locus of control when it is repeated every time. So, well, I guess that you might know somebody who always says things like, "Oh, it's a particular moment in my life. Oh, yeah, there are some things going on around me," those kind of things, and they are constantly talking about that something which affects them. So in that case, if they are always like that, they clearly don't perceive that they have sort of a control over their life. They clearly believe that external things are always able to affect them. And finally, we have the sentence, "because I've got other problems." This is a little bit similar to it's a particular moment in my life, because once again it shifts the responsibility to some kind of problems external to that person, or we should say that the person can really control. Once again, if this sentence is repeated over and over, then you have a clear idea of who you are talking to. Now, the sentences which identify an internal locus of control are, in my opinion, a little bit more interesting. As a matter of fact, I find them quite fascinating because, in my experience, the people who have an internal locus of control tend to be much more productive, tend to do many things, tend to get things done. But when it comes to an extreme internal locus of control, they are sort of making a mistake in believing that it's just about the person itself and not the context. As a matter of fact, those people um, often believe that the context, the situation in which a person is put in, does not play an important role in defining the person's future. When in reality, or at least for what I've studied, we could cite the Zimbardo experiment. We should know that the situation plays a crucial role in defining how the person will behave. So we could say that the internal locus of control has a good result, but behind that result lies a sort of latent mistake, we could say, a latent mistake of perception about reality. Now, sentences which identify locus of control, internal locus of control, sorry, are things like "sorry, my fault," or "I can do this," "hard work pays off," "it's all about mindset," and finally, "yours is just a lack of willpower." That last one I'll get in a second, and it's the most interesting in my opinion. Let's start with "sorry, my fault." This is pretty basic, I would say. "Sorry, my fault" clearly implies that I was in control of the situation. As a matter of fact, I acted sort of in a bad way, and as a consequence, the situation is bad now. It does not imply that there was some external factor which sort of affected the situation. It was just fault of the person, and thus it was just a matter of the person not controlling well enough the situation. But it is a matter still, even though this person hasn't controlled the situation very well, it was just a matter of them. Now, "I can do this" is a little bit more on the extreme to the internal locus of control, because "I can do this" clearly implies that regardless of the situation, I am able to do that specific thing, regardless of my sort of attributes of my personality. I'm going to be able to do this, regardless of sort of factors which will um, make it more hard sorry make it harder for me to do this specific thing. I will still be able to do this. So it clearly has an internal locus of control. The person clearly perceives that they are in control of the situation. If they want to do it, they will be able to do that. "Hard work pays off." Hard work pays off simply implies that if you work enough, you will get some results. But since the work is something that you do, that the person does, and is something that they control, um, this means that the person is able to control what results they will get. It's not about external factors, it's just about their actions. It's all about mindset. Now we are getting very near the extreme of this end of the spectrum, of this end of the continuum, because it's all about mindset. It's not even anymore about actions. It's all about something going on inside the person. So it's even less sort of affected by external things. When you are in control of your mindset, sort of this sentence means that when you are in control of your mindset, you are in control of everything. So you that is pretty self-explanatory. And finally, my favorite one, yours is just a lack of willpower. You don't understand how fascinating I find this sentence, because it's it's not even about the person saying something about themselves. It's about a person saying something about, well, we should say saying something to someone else. So they are judging. Um, Oftentimes, from my experience, whenever this sentence comes up, is a sort of negative judgment, and yours is just a lack of willpower. Is basically the sentence. It's all about mindset, just sort of transformed into a judgment. Because when you say yours is just a lack of willpower, that means that you would be able to control everything, but you are not. You don't have enough willpower. You don't want this enough. So it's all about you. It's your fault. External things do not matter at all. You can't find any excuses. It's all your fault. Now, it is, as I said before, I think I've said it, a continuum. So you are not, it doesn't work like you are either with an external locus of control and you are totally external, or you have a totally internal. You could be a mix of both, but I have rarely, if never, seen someone who is right in the middle. What I'm saying is you are always towards an end, but it's not that you are in the middle a little bit towards an end of the spectrum. In my experience, you are very near an end of the spectrum. You might not be at the end precisely, but you are very near that. And so, um, yeah, I believe that in one way or another, we end up with a tendency either to be on one side or on the other. It's not, I mean, our fault. It's just, I believe, our education, our surroundings. And with these sentences I just said, you clearly see that it's not, my position is not on the extreme internal locus of control. But, and I want to point out this, I do feel like I believe that many of the things going on around us are sort of the result of our control. So my position would be quite a lot towards the internal locus of control, not totally, because I understand that the situation plays a crucial role, but I am very near I would say very near towards the internal locus of control, and I'll explain a little bit in my opinion, the pros and the cons of both extremes. But first, I something that just came up in my mind right now. I would say that both the external and the internal locus of control are two sort of wrong perceptions. In my opinion, they are too extreme and too naive, especially that of the extreme internal locus of control, because um, for what I've seen, people who have an internal locus of control, an extreme internal locus of control, tend to be a little bit judgmental towards others, um, and they are sort of creating negative sentences, negative judgments, but they do not realize that oftentimes they are simply extreme and they are neglecting um, an important factor, which is the context. Now, consequences of an internal locus of control. In my opinion, as I said, since I am towards the internal locus of control, I've found many more positive consequences of the internal locus of control, and almost nothing of bad consequences. Um, and on the other end, for the external locus of control, I found almost just cons and not any pros. Now, consequences of an internal locus of control, in my opinion, they may be productiveness, psychological well being, sense of achievement, sense of feeling capable of doing things, and a higher sense of responsibility. Why do I say so? Basically, productiveness, when you feel you are in control, you tend to get things done because you know that that you must that you must do some things in order to achieve some things. And so you are much more productive. Instead, if you are rather, if you believe that external things control your life, you will not tend to do that because you feel that wherever you do, actually you are not doing that much because it's just a matter of something else. Psychological well-being, which correlates to the sense of achievement and sense of feeling capable of doing things. Um, when you feel you are in control, you tend to try to do things, and thus, when you lose, you simply say, "Okay, I lost. That's it. I'm just going to try again," because you feel that it's just a matter of how hard you try, and so in the end, you will be able to achieve something, and so you will feel well about yourself. You will feel that you are controlling everything. And from this derives the sense of achievement. Of course, if you are able to do a number of things, then you will be sort of actually very proud of yourself. And finally, the sense of feeling capable of doing things it is related to this to the feeling of being in control. Finally, the higher sense of responsibility. In my opinion, when you are sort of aware, well, we should say when you believe that everything is under your control and thus you need to have control over everything, you are much more responsible because internally believe that what goes on around you is just a matter of how hard you control everything. Yeah, basically that's it. Consequences of an external locus of control. Now, take these sort of aspects with a grain of salt because I know they may be a little bit harsh, maybe. As a matter of fact, in my notes, I've put these aspects with a question mark because I'm not sure about that. As a matter of fact, if you think that I'm too extreme, if you think that I should say something else, make sure to tell me and leave a comment down below. I will be very interested in this because I'm not very sure about it, especially because I'm towards the internal locus of control. So I don't really perceive reality as someone who has an external locus of control. But in my opinion, we could say that less productiveness is an aspect which is a consequence of the external LOC because when you feel, as I said before, basically, when you feel that you don't actually control much about your life, you tend not to try, and so you tend not to do things. Psychological well being, maybe not much, because you may feel stressed because you believe that things never go your way and you can do nothing about it. Sense of achievement, it's likely that you might feel lucky instead of feeling that you did the right actions, so your sense of achievement might be low. If you always believe that the things you achieved are not due to you, to your abilities, then you are not going to have a great sense of achievement because you genuinely believe that it was not something that was sort of due to your skills. But we could make an opposite argument and say that you might feel that you were so good that things went well against all the odds. So the sense of achievement may be even higher than an internal LOC. In other words, if you believe that everything is controlled by external things, when you are able to achieve something, then you might believe that it's just about you because even though things were sort of affecting the result, you were still able to achieve what you did. But in my opinion, this position tends to be a little bit more towards the internal LOC. That means it's sort of a facade. It seems like it is towards the external LOC, but it is rather on the LOC because um, in that case, you feel that you actually have some control. You have some control if the things go well. When, in my opinion, if a person is an extreme external locus of control, if something um, goes well, they will still believe that it was a matter of something else. Finally, well, not finally, another aspect is the sense of feeling capable of doing things. I don't think an external locus of control allows you to have it because you believe that it doesn't really depend on you. So you feel that like you're not really capable of many things. And finally, the sense of responsibility. This is perhaps the most important aspect. I believe it is quite low because, in my opinion, if you believe things are out of your control, you are not trained, even mentally, to deal and control many things. So, in the end, you don't have a higher sense of responsibility. Now, I want to conclude this episode by telling you guys what is, in my opinion, the best position. And you might have seen it coming, but I'm a big supporter of the internal LOC. Although there may be some cons, which are higher psychological pressure and higher levels of stress, in my opinion, once you know that actually it's not everything that is under your control, but you are aware that many things are under your control, you tend not to have a lot of psychological pressure, at least in my opinion, and you tend to be sort of very responsible, very productive, those kind of things. So, in my opinion, the internal locus of control is the best, but not the extreme point which in which you believe that everything, like literally everything, is under your control. In my opinion, you need to have that little bit, the little piece of the other world, which is the external locus of control, in order, one, to feel well, to feel better, and two, to be a little bit more aware of reality. As a matter of fact, I will be highly interested in hearing what sort of an extreme internal locus of control person would say about the some of the social experiments, which clearly highlighted how actually people are not that people are actually affected by the context. But um, yeah, so in the end, I believe that the internal locus of control pros are extremely outweighed by the cons anyway, if that wasn't clear enough. So that was it for today's episode. I hope you guys enjoyed. With that said, see you guys.